Now to one of our top stories. Iran is backing out of its landmark nuclear deal after a United States airstrike killed the country's top commander. The US president has threatened to strike back if Iran retaliates further, but people across the US have made it clear they're not interested in war. Joining me now live on the line is Stephen Simon from the Quincy Institute. Stephen, thank you so much for your time this morning. Tensions are at an all-time high. Is the threat of war genuine?
Well, we don't really know. This situation, the standoff that now exists, could escalate depending upon what one or the other of the two contending parties does. Right now, the ball really is in Iran's court, and thus far, it's chosen to confine its response to the realm of diplomacy. By seeking action against the United States and the United Nations, by suspending its participation in the nuclear deal that had been negotiated in 2015 with 5 permanent members of the Security Council, Germany and the United States. That was a fairly major step, although they've emphasized that it's a temporary one, assuming that they are the sanctions on Iran are suspended. They say they will go back to the agreement. So it's not quite a done deal. The Europeans, the European Union have invited the Iranian foreign secretary to Brussels for consultations. They will no doubt offer Iran some form of economic assistance if Iran refrains from attacking the United States and setting in motion a tit-for-tat series of attacks that could grow in intensity and lead to a major war. So right now, for the most part, we're really waiting on the Iranians to see whether or not they follow through on their pledge to retaliate against American military targets somewhere in the region.
Iran has backed out of this nuclear deal now as part of its nuclear deal commitments. Overall, how concerning is this?
Well, I think it was an anticipated result. I think the administration, the U.S. administration, has long sought to create circumstances that would lead to Iran abrogating its own involvement in the agreement. And that would then enable the United States to say, well, you see, Iran never really intended to follow through on its commitments, and they could not be trusted. The fact that the United States pulled out first, I'm sure would not enter into the discussion, at least from the U.S. Side. So, in a sense, the Iranians have played into U.S. hands by announcing a suspension of their involvement in the agreement. On the other hand, some might say that it's actually a shrewd move because it puts increased pressure on the Europeans to help Iran out economically, and at the same time drives the wedge between the United States and its European allies ever deeper. What the net effect is, is hard to say. It's a move that could swing both ways.
And how critical is Donald Trump's strategy in all of this? We know we're heading into an election year in the US. Is his strategy under scrutiny? Well,
his strategy is a bit difficult to interpret. Just a matter of a few months ago, really, he was beseeching the Iranian president, Rouhani, for a meeting in New York to discuss renewed nuclear talks, and when the Iranians, subsequent to that, struck major Saudi oil facilities, on the Arab side of the Gulf, the United States turned a blind eye in an effort not to ruin chances of renewed talks with Iran. And then just a few months later, there's a very different strategy at work, which was on display in the assassination of Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian general. So the question is, what changed between then and now? And the only answer that really leaps to mind is impeachment. I think as a way to shore up his base and change the conversation, and especially whatever negative dynamic might have evolved in the Senate, this was a politically clever move. I think it does help him.
Well, it's certainly going to be a one to watch and see how this all unfolds. Stephen Simon from the Quincy Institute on the line. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.